So welcome everybody. This is another episode of the Landlords, and this is the show where we wanted to let you know that your rent is due. That's right. We are your landlords, and and the rent is due, y'all. It's coming for you. And in fact, we decided that it would be easier rather than simply phoning up each of you individually, because let's be honest, there's just so many of you. We would rather put on a show here to get you that message, but then in the process also share a little bit about Magic the Gathering, because as investors in the product, we can't help but be rather plugged into this. And so we thought we'd share some insights and encourage you to check in. So my name is Piggy Banks, and also known as Hamhawks42 on the various internets. You can find me under that moniker. And I'm here with my associate, who you don't definitely do not want to make mad. This is Burns Money.
And friends,
Burns,
you
how's it
know
going, my
me.
friend?
It's going good, Piggy Banks. You all know me as Buns Money because I got so much. I don't know what to do with it. But Piggy Banks, how you doing? I like we were talking about in the relaxation that is going on here and the astuteness that not
Mm,
always do we have to be in our suits because even the business needs a rest because we making so much a minute. Not even a minute. We making so much a second off of our rent
absolutely.
payers that we can take a vacation when we want to.
Passive income, everybody. I got to tell you what, it's fantastic. I'm a big fan. Absolutely. So we decided to put our feet up because things right now are in a really good spot. We're nice and liquid. Things are calm, and when things are calm, when things are happy, when things are healthy, we can enjoy these kind of breakdowns. And so today, what we wanted to discuss with all of you fine folks is, when is a meta within Magic the Gathering healthy? What makes a healthy meta, and are we there right now? Which, I mean, you can assume based on our locales, kind of what we're dealing with here, and kind of where we stand on this. So yeah. So Burns, when you think of a healthy meta, when you think of a healthy game, when you're enjoying Magic and things are in a healthy spot, when you hear healthy, what does that mean for you?
For me, that means one thing. Dominance does not exist in the slightest. I mean, aside from the
Mm.
dominance that we have in the financial market
Well, I
of our
mean,
land
yeah, of
collectors,
course,
but
but
like
yeah,
that's a given. But
that's inevitable.
that
Exactly.
thing
Yep.
exactly. But dominance does not exist. There is not one deck that is running in the top 40% of a meta. There is not something still going 2025 that is holding in. There is not one card that everyone says is the boogeyman in this effect. There is several that people might think are unhealthy allegedly, but the
Allegedly.
spread the spread is wide. Things are happening. We are seeing various archetypes all top aiding, all succeeding in a multitude of formats. And I mean, from the standard perspective, because that is primarily where, well, allegedly, where you and I associate,
Absolutely.
as we
Absolutely.
are apparently known in.
Hmm.
But I would say, from a standard standpoint, a very healthy meta. I mean, we got control. We got control rocking in. Mono red has been top eight in some of them pizza box stuff. We have been seeing
Hmm.
banned toxic aggro poison coming on in. We have been seeing Golgari and some sweet Rakdos mid range. Reanimator existing in a format again. And to my
How long's
eyes,
it been?
it's been so long. And lands. Freaking lands. I mean, when was the last time you tell me, Piggy Banks? When was the last time you saw a ramp or lands based deck existing in standard and sufficiently succeeding?
I have not seen anything like the one that we have today. I gotta say, the last time had to be when Zendikar Rising was still legal within standard, because that had a lot of landfall payoffs. But even then, looking back in that standard, the best landfall payoff we got was Ruin Crab. And people were using that alongside rogues for kind of a tempo thing to kind of like come at you and beat up your face and beat up your library simultaneously. And that attack was pretty nasty, but it was not necessarily a lands deck. It just had some landfall payoffs. Now, in right now, when we're talking about the lands deck that we see in standard, it blows my mind. This lands deck, the lands in it are these 5 cent commons and basics. That's it. It's
That's it.
wild. It's wild. It's beautiful. I gotta say, I love this. I love this deck because and then one of the best cards in the whole thing, one of the strongest cards in the entire deck is freaking Aftermath Analyst. Now, I knew that card was gonna be good, but holy cow, is so much better than I thought. So much better than I thought. It's amazing, and that's one of the best cards. That's a kill on sight card in that deck, which is still wild to me. Freaking wild. And yeah, it's insanely popular, insanely powerful. and it's able to deliver these crazy wins where, like, on turn 4, you got freaking 90 lands in the battlefield and you're doing a dozen damage to your opponent's face twice. It's like, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So it's a beautiful thing. I'm being hyperbolic, but you understand what I'm trying to say. I'm very excited about this particular deck. And it shows up at a time when almost all the top decks in standard were either black based or white based, and that was it. You just needed one of those two colors in your deck if you're going to do it, because that's where all the best removal and all the best threats are. And half the time, even the best card draw was in those freaking colors. It was wild. And so everybody was running black and white decks just everywhere. Like you see Golgari, you see Esper, you see, various Azorius control. Mono white was a thing for a while. It's fallen out of favor for sure in recent months. But it's out. People are out there doing it. And you got Boros Convoke, very, very much white based. It's really nice to see Teamer, like a 3-color deck that doesn't have either of them. And it's popping off and is winning stuff. It's great. Love it. So it's very exciting. And that, to your point, we don't have a dominant deck right now. For a minute, we had Domain. Prior to that, we had Espa, and they're still here. Both those decks are fine. And even Golgari, when it first showed up, was kind of people were really excited about it. And then things changed. It became less popular as other decks stepped up. And we're at a point right now in Standard where there are tons of different options. And I think that's the key. You need to have a ton of options, which you can't have when something's dominant. If one deck or one card is taking over everything, as we've seen with Oko, as we saw with Uro, as we saw with Omnath, those cards are the locus of creation, the four color Omnath.
Full on
Those, yeah, the 4-color one. 5-color one, nobody cares about that thing. But 4-color one, oh my goodness, different story completely. So those cards were so powerful and so insane that when you were gonna play in standard, your choices were either play that deck, play with those cards, or play the cards that killed those cards. And that was it. That was your only option.
It's done.
That was it. Yeah. I mean, you run Noxus Grasp in your main board because one of the only answers to Oko. That's a problem. We're not okay with this.
I remember
That's an
investing in
unhealthy
Noxious
standard.
Scrap. That was something. I'd even
Mm.
say, back in now, we have an even better answer coming in at the long goodbye. I mean, this
Oh
thing
my
can't be
goodness.
counted, and it does what Noxious Grasp was doing. But I
I mean,
digress. To agree in
indeed.
the point, we are in a healthy state, and I think this is extending to other formats as well. I may not be able to touch much on the modern state, as that is an ever
Mhm.
shifting. But we did have a recent ban that seemed to have taken care of some troublesome rhinos, as I do here. But when we look at some of the other formats too, Pioneer is very much existing. There's a development in some of the decks coming in line. Lotusfield maybe not being quite as prominent, but being brought closer in. Modern still kind of, like I said, existing, and the Legacy is a nice spread of stuff. And frankly, as a Legacy player myself, because where else are my investments going to be?
I mean, of course.
Standard has just felt like Legacy to me as of late in the spread of what can be done. I can
Which
pick
is
up a
very
deck of,
impressive.
yeah, just you pick up anything, get played. It's great, and I'm loving it. It's fantastic. And I also see you have brought your travel compatriot, as you
Of
should.
course. Of course, yeah. Peas Blossom here has been, enjoying these lovely Bahamas sands. She's actually an absolute peach on airplanes. I got to say, she travels great. Unlike most other cats out there, I know most cats really do not like being in travel containers, but she understands she's going to get her toes in the sand, and she's on board. I got to say, she's always, yeah. But yeah, so she's here too, of course.
Cool, naturally.
Naturally, yeah. Audio listeners, I swear this is happening. It's yeah. There's a cat on my lap. It's fine. Anyway, but so the other question that I got to ask: why is it that diversity equals a healthy format? Like when we say healthy, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? Like I got my ideas, but I'm curious kind of what yours is. Because obviously, if something's dominant, if there's a lack of diversity, that's where things are unhealthy. Why do we want a format to be healthy? Like why is that important?
A healthy format makes sure that there is creativity in what can be done and further expresses what you will encumber on ladder or encounter. Maybe not encumber. That may have not been the right
I
wording
mean,
there.
you may be encumbered as
You
well. If
may
you're,
be it.
if you hoard things in, Fallout or Baldur's Gate the way I do, it happens. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's another story for another day.
No, no, I
Yep.
get you're quite in the right. I mean, if you're running into
Mhm.
balls convoke 5 times in a row, you might be encumbered against what's going on. But
Mhm.
nonetheless, healthy means there is existence of different strategies going on, and that's what we love in a meta. You want to see diversity. You want different strategies coming in. You don't always want to experience the same deck every 2, 3 matches. I mean, Sure, every fourth match, maybe you play against something along the meta, because that happens and stuff. But to have a truly great experience in Magic the Gathering, you want a spread, you want things going. And the more that can be spread, the more that can be experienced, the better it's gonna be because your gameplay is never gonna be the same. And that's what makes it great. That's the definition of a healthy meta. When something can
100%.
exist and perform and not be spread down and just say, hey, this is the only thing you should play and run into. You need diversity to brew creativity. And that's what we've got going on in the standard environment right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you know what happens when people get a chance to be creative and select their cards and build their decks in interesting, dynamic ways, and there's multiple options, they're going to have more fun. And you know what's great about people having more fun playing your formats and playing your events?
More
They're giving you
profit.
more money. Exactly.
I got you.
So we need people walking through those doors buying the cards. If they're not buying the cards to play the cards, then what are we doing here? So they need to be enjoying themselves. When people are enjoying themselves, when they're having, and that's why at various casinos and other businesses, the drinks are free. They want you to be having fun, and then you're willing to throw your money around. It's just good business.
That's
If the
exactly it.
format's not fun, people aren't playing. If people aren't playing, they're not spending money. It's that simple.
It's a
Same
business
reason we get
practice.
bans, by the way.
Yeah,
That's the same reason we have bans is to just keep things fun, keep things healthy. Yeah.
it's true. It's true. And I'm like, honestly, as much as there are problematic cards in the meta right now, there is nothing I would ban. There is nothing I would
Hmm.
call for banning. Are there problematic cards? I mean, sure, like they're strong cards, but everything's doing something kind of crazy or ridiculous right now. But it's not like it's undefeatable. It's not uninteractable. There's always something you can do. We've got a slew of graveyard hate to stop the combo decks. We've got great discard options to stop some of the control matches. You have other cards that can come up against the exile effects, because guess what? Sunfall doesn't hit your lands,
Sure
which
doesn't.
is great. It was funny, actually, Piggy Banks, you might laugh at this here. So as I'm playing lands as I do, being the landlord we is, and I'm dropping in, I'm playing some Awaken the Woods. I got some Dryads out on the board. And wouldn't you know, my opponent decides to try to temporary lock down my Dryads.
Oh, well, temporary lockdown has a very important word on it that I don't think they read.
That's
In
non-land, a very very clear
non-land, yeah.
disclosure.
Beautiful. Oh, that's fantastic. That's the greatest moment on Arena. We see that temporary lockdown hit, and the little animation goes off, and everything's still there, and they pause for a second and hover over it. And then sometimes it's followed by the scoop, which is just that's just gravy, but not always. But still, beautiful, nicely done.
10 out of 10.
Yeah,
Cannot
10 out of 10.
recommend
Love it.
enough. If you have not
Mm.
experienced the joy of not seeing your creatures exiled, please do experience it. It will bring you
My
so
goodness.
much joy. And then you can pay Piggy Banks and I in the form of gratuity. So we fund
Indeed.
more of these vacations, if you will.
Speaking of, that definitely reminds me of some previous standard experiences when Ashaya was still legal and it turned all the creatures into lands. I gotta say, the number of times I have played Binding the Old Gods just to have it stick and do nothing, that is not zero, let me tell you. That has happened. It is disappointing every time.
Turns out when something's to land, it's really hard to interact with.
It gets tough. It gets tough, and especially when you just select removal based on because if something says destroy target creature, it can still target a creature land, no problem. But there's a lot of removal out there that says non-land permanent, and if you're like me, you like that kind of removal because it's flexible. It lets you touch a lot of stuff. However, there is a
Well,
downside, and you got to be aware of that. So yeah, those of you out there with the using Right of Oblivion right now, for example, like be aware cannot target land creatures. Which, Awaken the Woods is one example. We see that card show up. And again, the fact that that card is even an option and it's competitive right now is great. I love
it's
that.
fantastic.
And so we see that, but then you also see the Awakened Skyclave, the backside of the Invasion of Zendikar. That's a creature land you see all over the place. The domain deck freaking loves that land. They're big on it. So be aware of that. Be careful.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, you gotta
Hmm.
watch out. There are some sneaky ways to get some land creatures rolling in for sure. But again, going back, the spread of decks we've got going on, and I would venture to touching on the healthy meta is when we see the impact of every set in different ways. We know rotation's coming. Rotation's gonna be
Hmm.
huge, and I mean huge. Capenna and back is going to be out of standard. We're losing a lot of stuff. Is it going to
Yep.
hurt? Absolutely. But despite that, I do know the last few sets have not been as what strong as I would say, New Capenna was. Ixalan definitely brought some heat to the fire. It brought some much needed reprints. Cavern of Souls coming in the meta. Resplendent Angel coming back in. The Bonehole Dracusaur. Chef's Kiss. That thing is a
Mhm.
thing of beaut.
Oof.
But, even to that effect, every set we have had so far has at least made an impact on the meta in some way, shape, or form in some cards. So you are not seeing a domination of one set still hoarding over this entirety of a format as well. And I think that is a great example of how we have gone from powerful sets in the past 2 years to incremental sets that bring in good cards in a functional format that pushes archetypes and still works together well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's impressive stuff, I gotta say. Yeah, and one of the things that I was impressed by is how this format has changed even after when rotation would have happened last year. So the 3-year rotation was a bold move, and I gotta say I was not a I remain not a huge fan of it if I'm completely honest. But I gotta say it has definitely worked out better than I anticipated. Because I gotta say my expectation, I think a lot of people's expectation was that the good stuff decks, those Espa decks, because like the Espa Legends deck, or now just the Espa mid range deck that we've had, there have been some version of that thing floating around for like the last year and a half. It's been absolutely everywhere, absolutely dominant. Won the world championship last year, no big deal. So we know that deck's really, really good. And the main goal with that deck is to put good stuff in it. Like it's that simple. Like there is synergy, there is some consideration for how your curve's gonna work. But at the end of the day, it's the best cards. Like I want small creatures that can attack, and I want some disruption. Let me give me the best options on all the levels. And so I expected that deck's just gonna keep getting new stuff and new stuff and new stuff, and it just strict upgrades at different points in the curve, and everybody else is just gonna get left behind. But what ended up happening is a lot of combo pieces are showing up. Like for instance, we talked about the lands action and the lands decks that we're seeing with those new Capenna lands, teaming up with World Souls Rage and Aftermath Analyst. That's beautiful and fantastic. But on top of that, there's also the reenact the crime, breach the multiverse combo. Those are really fun and super great. And those kind of things, they can exist because we have so much history to pull from. That combo can go turn 4 infinite, blow up your deck only because of this little comment from Innistrad Crimson called Repository Scout. If it wasn't for that CAD, the deck wouldn't work. Like, not really. Like, it definitely wouldn't go infinite. You can still go big, it can still be scary, but it wouldn't like end the game on the spot like it does right now. If it wasn't for the 3-year standard, that wouldn't be a thing. And so all of a sudden, the tools for other archetypes are present and they are rising to the top the way that Wizards said they would, which honestly at the time I was very skeptical about. So honestly it's pretty fun, and as a result we're finding ourselves in truly a healthy format because there's so much diversity, and on top of that, the top dog changes regularly. We're not in depending on what week it is going to dictate what decks are most popular and what is winning tournaments. And that's fantastic. It's constantly shifting. I love it. Like these waves behind me. It's constantly shifting. And that's exactly where we want it. Oh, love it.
we
Love it.
we want to experience that like push and pull of the tide, right? At the end of the day, that's what you want. You want the push to come in, something to take its spot. Some people tech against it. It kind of gets setbacks. That's the pulling away, and then a new wave crashes in. Someone else has brought in
Mm,
something that's gonna be the flavor for the week to come in. An ever shifting top spot is the ideal place to be because you never know what to quite expect when going in. And
absolutely.
I love it. This is phenomenal to me. This is what I love. And even to say, with all the stuff we've seen in the decks coming in, and some of the new cards being introduced, and some of the stuff going on, I have very high hopes for how healthy Standard is going to continue to be. And why I say that is, with Capenna going, and while we may be losing the Capenna fetch lands, we're losing the Triumphs. And people might be like,
Hmm.
well, Domain's gonna get hurt. Domain's not gonna be a thing. But let me tell you, Domain is probably going to shift to Aftermath Analyst, and they're going to be running basics, and I'm not so worried anymore.
Yeah, they'll be
Espa,
fine.
they'll be fine. Espa, Sure, you know what? Espa's probably going to lose Rafine. I mean, they are losing Rafine, but let me tell you, if you have not seen the mono blue tempo deck that has been rocking in, uh, let me tell you, keep an eye out for that because that's probably going to evolve into Espa. And how that deck works is as you draw cards for the turn, it puts +1/+1 counters on target creature, just like how Rafine used to. You're not conniving,
Oh.
but you're drawing and you're buffing. So I mean, do not be surprised that
Mm.
deck's changes are happening there. I mean, it's things are sticking. Even reenact the crimes. You know what? Sure, repository scab might get out of that, but let me tell you what can replace it. Hidetsugu and Kairi. Now suddenly you're targeting the life and the deck. We are in a
Fantastic.
we are in
Oh.
a beautiful state when rotation comes around. I am not worried in the slightest about this rotation. I am excited and enthralled for how this meta is
Mhm.
going to continue to go for this year. We are in paradise, as you can see behind
We
us
are.
and on our
We
faces here.
really are. This standard is absolutely a paradise, and it's delightful. Which I'm really surprised by because there've been no bans. I've seen people calling for bans for freaking months in standard, and we're at a point right now where like just very simple question like what deck is the problem? There's nothing. And so,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
so somebody will always be calling for a ban of the thing they hate the most. I get that. Like, and don't get me wrong, I completely understand if you just absolutely hate Sunfall. You play nothing but aggro deck. Sunfall's been just a wet blanket ruining your fun for a long time. Totally get that. It's also a very strong card. So I can understand the frustration there. But as these combo decks and as these non-combat focused decks become more and more popular, people are going to be running fewer Sunfalls. Like the reason that we saw Sunfall all the time forever was because it was like the only answer to the Espa deck. And if you were playing Domain, you had to be ready for the mirror and you had to be ready for Espa. That was it. If everything else was whatever. And Sunfall was an important resource in that to the point where we've seen those domain decks running 4 Sunfalls and 4 Depopulates. Because they're just no, like in the mirror, you're gonna put some stuff on the board. I'm gonna need to wipe it against Espa. If I don't wipe, I'm dead. It's that simple. And so you just got to do it. And we're getting to a point now where as these combo decks are emerging, like if you're playing the rug burn deck, if you're playing the reenact the crime deck, you don't care about Sunfall. You can Sunfall, I might get your little 2/2 incubator, whatever. Like who cares? Like it would have been nice if that went to my graveyard, but I'll manage. It's fine. It's wild to me. Wild how different things are getting. And as those meta shifts, the answers have to shift too. And those decks all of a sudden need to be running more counter spells. They need to be running more stack interaction. They need to be running more hexproof, flash threats, those kind of things. And so we're shifting away. So now they're going to be running fewer sweepers, which means those aggro players can now step in and they're going to have clearer sailing, even though nothing else changed. You know, Sunfall didn't get banned, but you know what? It's easier to play aggro now. The other thing I want to talk about when it comes to metas is everybody's meta is different. That's something that a lot of people don't understand. Like, if you ever hear somebody say, "Man, I cannot believe they never banned Kumano faces Kakizan," they are playing best of one exclusively. I guarantee
Guaranteed.
it. Because in best of three, that card is it's around, but it's not a big deal. But in best of one, you see that thing constantly. So best of one versus best of three, different metas. Also, your rank on arena dictates what meta you're going to see. Your geographical region, if you're playing in person, if you're going on to your store, that meta is just going to be different because there's a smaller pool of players, and you're more likely to see people just bring in decks that they had lying around. They're more likely to just play something that maybe isn't as fully optimized because they don't want to spend money on it. That kind of thing. So metas are different. Just because what you are seeing does not match what other people are seeing doesn't mean that what other people are seeing is inaccurate. Also, when ban decisions are made, Wizards is looking at play data and tournament winnings at a very big scale. Like, I know I personally have this deep feeling that, like with deep cabin bet, you see it every single time. If you have it in your deck, you will have it in your starting seven, and if you're playing against it, they will have it on turn two.
Every
It's
time.
just a feeling, but like it feels that way, right? Well, in paper, that's not a thing for starters. It's just not. Um, but where's I going with this? Oh man, I had a thought. It was a really good one too. But
Variability, maybe variability in the
variability, exactly. It's just one of those things. It fluctuates. What we see, what we experience is different. And so the Wizards has the data. They can see, okay, is Deep Cavern Bat being played at a disproportionate amount? They'll see that on the back end. We don't have those numbers. They do. They can see that stuff. Arena tracks, all that, I'm sure. So when they make a ban decision, it's because they see a card getting played a ton more, and they have numbers to back it up. So, like, I feel like Deep Cavern Bat's absolutely everywhere right now. There are plenty of decks now running Deep Cavern Bat. I have no doubt if you look at the actual numbers, it is nowhere near as bad as it feels. That thing also just ruins my day every time it shows up because I don't run enough removal. That's on me. But still, it's kind of nuts. It's fun. In fact, I'm starting to gonna. By the way, here's a little pro tip for anybody else out there. If you have black in your deck, just run 4 cut downs. You're not actually gonna target anything with it. It's just the bat's gonna take that, not the thing you need. Just saying. So,
Yeah,
and if you're playing red, play with fire or Lithomanic Barrage. Just put them in your deck. They kill bats. That's all you need to do.
they
That's
kill
all I need
bats,
to do.
and that's the
Just kill the
biggest
bats.
thing.
That's it. Anyway,
Actually, that kind of ties into the point of what I also think defines a healthy meta. When you got options to do what you want to do, it's not
exactly.
just diversity of the. I mean, the diversity of the decks is the big thing. But when you have options in your sideboard and you don't have to specifically target like one sort of kind of deck, or you can do something like that, bringing in cards in your sideboard into your main deck to disrupt the opponent's plan is usually the play.
Mhm.
Doing something what Piggy Banks was talking about there, bringing in cards to target a specific thing that they've got, but also to sway them from taking your main combo pieces, is not a sideboard tech we get to experience very often unless the meta is very healthy. Because primarily, usually, we have to bring in the sideboard pieces that are going to completely annihilate a deck. But now we can bring in functional removal pieces that, let's say we're playing against Espa here, and we're bringing in Lithomanic Barrage because we want to target a repeat.
Mhm.
It's by coincidence that they also have the bat in that deck, but Lithomantic not kills the bat and it kills a repeat. We are bringing it in. It is a target that they're going to want to take from our hand to keep their side of the board safe and let us safely play our Aftermath Analyst and do our land strategy all the while. What do I care about a 1/1? Nothing. It's not going to do it. I'm going to have 14 mana on turn 5. What do I care about a 2 mana 1/1?
I
Get
love
out
it.
of here. Like, it's fine. But
You also see how things have shifted in sideboard construction. The way people work
mm,
their sideboards, like you're saying, unlicensed hearse is a bomb coming out of people's sideboards. That thing is insane, but it hasn't been a very popular choice for a long time. Against control, you might be able to eat a memory deluge here and there, but that's about it. You really don't want a sideboard slot for just that. But now that this Teamer lands deck is showing up and it's reanimating their lands, like a lot of them at once, the fact that the unlicensed hearse can take these big scoops out of people's graveyards hurts that deck like crazy if you know how to use it. Like completely shuts them down. Like I don't know about you, but I'm running 3 unlicensed hearse and a bunch of my sideboards. When I go up against that deck, they all come in. I usually win games 2 and 3. It's great. Like it makes a huge difference. The last time that card was a popular sideboard piece was back when mono blue was viable because it could eat the instants and sorceries that the Haughty Djinn was using. So that was like the only other CAD that I can think of. Unlicensed Hearse has been legal in standard for 2 years now. Yeah, like it's from New Capenna. It's been around the whole time, and and it's a great sideboard piece that I'm pretty sure sees sideboard play in like modern and even further back, I think. But in any event, it's an amazing cat, and it just wasn't seeing any standard play, which is another thing that's hilarious, by the way. I love how older formats, certain cards will be like absolute bombs, and they see no play in standard. I love that. That's one of my favorite things. Oh,
I
like
would agree
Ledger
with that.
Shredder is a great example of
Legislative.
that.
Oh,
Oh.
great card. Doesn't
Standard
see a ton of
players,
play. Oof, but
yeah,
yeah,
standard players will look at that and be like, "This thing's like $8. Why?" And it's like, well, modern,
modern and
like
pioneer.
legacy. That's yeah,
It's
and pioneer exactly. Like,
legacy. Yeah, no, it's true. Like it's crazy. Just the diversity of what gets played in the different formats and availability of them as well, and what defines them as being good. I mean, would you have even believed? I don't know if you've seen this cat a ton. Some of the land stacks play this echoing depths. It's from Ixalan.
I've seen some people playing that. I gotta
Yeah.
be honest. I don't get it. Why is Echoing Depth so
Okay.
pretty?
So
Was it nice?
what echoing does is when it comes into the battlefield, it can become a copy of any land in the graveyard. Now, currently in standard, maybe you've milled a dual land or a tri land or one of the lands from Capenna. You get an extra fetch, it hits the bin, that kind of thing. What makes that actually very strong is the showing in legacy. Because in lands and legacy, let me tell you about this fun strategy. If you have a
Oh,
Bajuka Bog on your field and you crop rotation, sacrificing your Bajuka Bog, you can grab Echoing Depths from your deck and Echoing Depths enters in, and you make it a copy of a Bajuka Bach, exiling your opponent's graveyard a second time in a game, which can be absolutely devastating against the
I love it.
Reanimator player.
I love it. Oh, as a reanimated player, that's I'm gonna have nightmares of this. But I gotta say, as if crop rotation wasn't good enough. I love it.
It gets
Love
even
it.
better. It's beautiful. Whatever you need, Echoing Depths is going to become.
That's the thing that's amazing too with just lands. Lands have gotten so good and so useful. It's wild to see what people are doing with those things. Love it.
I'm not gonna
Love it.
lie. I would honestly love if we had a Wasteland Rembrandts standard. I'm not lying here. I know
I wouldn't be mad.
we have like Field of Ruin and Demolition Field. No, like Wizards of the Coast. Just let people experience the joys of wastelanding and how to wasteland properly, because we do have a conduit of worlds in the standard right now.
Oh, that's nasty.
And what I would actually, I might have to brew this up tomorrow night on Saturday if I get a chance on stream. But a Conduit of Worlds Field of Ruin deck targeting non-basic plant decks.
Because you got, I mean,
You just Field of Ruin every time you play.
Field of Ruin. You've got Demolition Field, and you've got that like Unstable Fissure or whatever from Ixalan. So yeah, that could happen. That's disgusting. I love it.
You just cycle through, you blow up the lands, we do some Crankle Buzzkill, we pull some World Souls Rage, some Aftermath Analyst and Nissa, and some Splunking, and that's it. I might actually be doing this.
Yeah, that might happen, yeah. That actually sounds pretty good. That sounds so good. I kind of broke character a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit there. Yeah, anyways,
I know.
Jun Ponza.
Anyway, so Jun lands, Conduit of the World, Field of Ruin. Basic checks, baby.
Basic checks. That's the whole point of the meta. Actually, that brings me to a third point of a healthy meta. When you are having to do a basic check in a meta and you actually see people properly playing the basics and not playing too greedy of a mana base, that's a healthy meta.
That's important.
When people know to respect that they have to have a basic because there is that kind of interaction, that's a healthy meta. Honestly, like all the checks, everything is just clicking off to me right now. It's diversity, alternative sideboard and choices, and plus we have checking of decks to make sure you are interacting and have answers for different things going on just in the off chance it happens. It's wonderful. Ready. It's amazing.
Love it. Truly fantastic stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I gotta say, the current standard meta, A+. You'll love to see it. Dare we try to discuss the Commander meta? Because that's not really a thing, which is kind of fun.
I feel like I have one word to describe that meta. Ward 3.
Wait, 1-3?
No, Ward 3.
Ward 3. Ah, yes. We'll go to Ward 3.
Yeah, if I was to surmise the Commander meta right now, it would be Voya.
Yep.
Voya. That's the meta.
Well, you know why though, right? Because it has like 10 mana worth of stuff on it. It only has 5.
Yeah, it's like Trample and Vigilance, and it's a 5/5.
Trample, Vigilance.
Got Ward 3.
Ward 3, when it attacks, you draw a card for every wolf you have. It sees itself, so bare minimum, you draw 1 card. And then you get a +1/+1 counter on every single creature you have for each elf you have. I mean, that's just if you attack, you win the game.
Dude.
Like, let's be real. Like, it's that's just... It blows my mind how Wizards of the Coast has decided that when they print something in Commander, they can just be like, however many mana, whatever, it's fine. Just like... And it's not the only one, by the way. There are a lot of cards that do that, where it's like 3 or 4 mana, and it provides something that in the past would have cost 7 or 8. Like it's just becoming a new thing. So it is what it is. Yep.
That's it. But
so
that is the Commander meta. But at least the Commander meta is identifying a problematic push card when they are seeing it. That is a development from ages past. Because
absolutely,
because they often go through the similar things as people in Standard do. This is broken, you gotta ban it. You gotta do this, you gotta ban it. Or this would be fine, you gotta unban this. I mean, I know there, for example, I'll bring up Coalition Victory. I personally would be fine if that was unbanned. However, I do recognize that at present, it would be extremely easy to even pull off, especially with Leyland the Guild Pack. So I do respect it staying banned because of the Commander philosophy. That is a whole other discussion we'll get into another day. I think you would agree, and similarly, certain things we respect, other players do not, but for the health of the format, they stay as they are. But
Absolutely. Well, and that's the one thing about Commander. It's
mm,
kind of like the falling back that people do. It's like, oh, the social contract. Like we can all acknowledge this card's busted. Please don't play it. And that's it. Just is what it is. And I appreciate that. And and it's funny. I got a couple decks. Actually, it's funny. I got a deck based on Garuda that I learned very quickly. Like people have feelings about that commander,
mm,
and I brought it out once thinking like, oh, it's just gotta get into. I'm gonna play some of your critters, guys. It's gonna be fun. I want to fill up everybody's graveyard. Reanimated players, I got you. Let's go. And people just assumed that it was like a CEDH clone machine, and I got destroyed. And so I learned pretty quickly, like, no, with this commander, you just got to know this is going to be high power, and you just kind of got to build it that way and be ready. Like, because people will assume that that's what you're doing one way or another. And Voha, absolutely one of those. Whereas, like, if you're going to bring that to my table, I'm assuming that you're going to be bludgeoning me in the face for like 50 damage on turn 6 if I don't, or turn friggin' 4 because you're ramping with elves if I don't stop you, and that's just is what it is. And so I'm gonna do what I can to
hands
stop that
down.
from happening.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
Voya would fall into that classification for me, where I would say it would be along the lines of it is a powerful commander, and no matter how it is built, despite if you did 99 lands and just there is probably going to be something where it impacts and attacks, and the game's going to progress. It's just one of those commanders.
Yep.
Corvold original printing, same kind of thing. Toxrill,
100%.
same kind of
100%.
thing. But again, depending if you do the 70 land Toxrill effect, even then, Toxrill is actually still pretty good, as we have found
It
out
was
in
it
the
was actually this has been tested, and not even running the best freaking not even running the best mana rocks, but like mana rocks, Toxrill, believe it or not, that is actually a deck. It can kind of work.
it was
But that's the thing. That deck doesn't win a game. That deck just shuts down one other person in the pod who's trying to go wide. That's all it does. Shout out to my buddy Damien F16 for being a really good sport. When I was just murdering his fairies with my big slug. Just yeah. Oh man, it was a massacre. It was gross.
it's
Anyway,
beautiful.
it was fun. But yeah, in any event. But yeah, when the command is the strongest card in your deck, that's when things get rough. Yep.
Yeah. And that comes into the push philosophy as we have seen. But I will say I do think at certain degrees they are slightly realizing when a card is being pushed and when not. Because the more recent commanders, Universes Beyond Assad, the more recent stuff, say for one or two, have been more in line with the traditional commander effect and things. Like if I looked at Tesa, the new Tesa, I think that's a wonderful effect on 3 mana commander. It's very, very cool, very fine.
Absolutely.
We look
Yeah.
at Oberimos and Fibblethip from Aftermath. Very cool effect. Bounce it in, deal some damage, draw some cards. Perfectly fine with that. Like it's a lot of cool stuff and balances. Yargle and Multani.
Oh,
Fantastic.
beautiful. Thing of
Perfection.
beauty. Oh, greatest design that we've seen in a long
Ever.
time. Just saying. Oh, so good.
18-6.
So good.
Never done. Just Voltron and
Only
trample.
currently the only vanilla creature that's legal in standard. I love it. I love
Only
it so
vanilla
much.
creature. Let that sink in. A vanilla creature
Mm.
rare.
Yep.
That baffles my mind still, but
Yep. Legendary rare is the only vanilla in standard. Oh,
keywords
classic.
everywhere, as far as the eye can see.
Not on this guy. Nope. Instead, instead it has just beautiful flavor text. And yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Healthy meta.
All right. Healthy metas, diversity, constant change, and get an opportunity for creativity to kind of abound. Because when so many decks arise, you're allowed to kind of go off the script a little bit because you're gonna have janky brews and weird ideas have better matchups. There's some janky brews that really don't do great against control, as most janky brews do. Trust me, I'm very familiar. Uh, but maybe they do really well against aggro, or maybe they do really well against mid range. And well, you're gonna see those in addition to the other decks, and it's just nice. And so that's where we want to be, and that's where we've been. So yeah, kudos to Wizards for their design. And it's funny you mentioned that in recent sets haven't been as powerful as some of the older ones, which I think is fair. But I feel like every single standard set that has been released since what would have been rotation has had a pretty significant impact on the meta.
I agree.
And that's
Absolutely.
cool.
It
I like
is.
that. That was my fear that that wouldn't happen. And it has. So excellent. You'll love to see it.
Healthy meta. That's where we're at. And speaking of where we at, Piggy Banks, where are you at? Where can the people find you on outro statements of a healthy meta?
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you want to appreciate this healthy meta with me in various places, you can do so all over the place. I'm on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhugs42. When you see my name pop up in chat, you can just press the little follow if you're watching here live. You can. I'm also over on the YouTubes, hamhugs42, on Twitter and now TikTok at Hawks42 in those places, doing all kinds of fun stuff. Celebrating this game that we love, and yeah, and I do make appearances on various TikTok and Twitter videos, because I'm an investor in the game, right? That's ultimately what I'm here to do as Piggy Banks. So my goal is to find the best cards, and I got some people helping me with that, and they selling me the best cards, and I'm trying to identify what works well. And so those are on shorts on YouTube and over on the TikToks. So hopefully I see you there. And Burns, my friend, how about you? Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, so like Piggy Banks, I am kind of all over the place. You can find me at Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube under the alias, my alleged alias of Astralsflame. You know the saying, you should be playing Jund and or Dragons, and that's Dragons with an S between the brackets at the end. Because if you can't play a lot, you should at least play one. And I'm doing the streaming, the YouTubes, and the fun stuff, and we got some cool stuff going in. But that's all the more you should be checking out our stuff. So dear renters, this has been another episode of Your Landlords. Rent is due, and we're coming back to collect next week. We'll catch you next time.
Cheers.